Welcome to our road trip home from Arizona episode. Since the distance from Arizona to Ontario, Canada is quite long, over 3,400 kilometers or 2,100 miles, we decided to make a trip out of it with our friends Brian and Tricia instead of dashing straight home. For this road trip, we stopped at Las Cruces in New Mexico, Fort Stockton and Austin in Texas, Hot Spring, Arkansas, Nashville, Tennessee, Jackson Center in Ohio, and finally got home after 11 days on the road. It was a great mini trip. Our first stop in Las Cruces for a couple of nights, we camped at the KOA where we had a superb site overlooking the city with the beautiful Oregon Mountains in the background. That was a nice KOA location. The Oregon Mountains are majestic yet dramatic with its jagged peaks. The elevation is about 8,900 feet or 2,700 meters, roughly 5,000 feet from the ground. We visited the old town of Mesilla, which was first established in 1840. It has a bunch of shops with local artisans where we bought a couple of souvenirs. It also has a few restaurants and one of the oldest Catholic basilica in the region, the Basilica of San Albino, which was established in 1851. It feels very old with lots of history. Also, Mesilla is the city where Billy the Kid was tried and convicted of murder. Of course, we went in the shop, and we had a great Mexican lunch at La Posta restaurant. Nearby the KOA, we went and visited the recycled Roadrunner statue. This is a huge statue made completely of recycled material, quite original. Overall, Las Cruces was a nice short stop. We then proceeded to Austin, going through El Paso, a city on the Mexican border where you can actually see houses on the other side of the fence. Being from Canada, we don't experience the Mexican border much. Shortly after, we stopped for the night at Fort Stockton RV Park, splitting the distance in two. In Austin, we stayed at the KOA East Austin. Nothing fancy, but it was well maintained overall. Being in Austin and being a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, I had to stop and see the memorial statue in his honor. He was a famous blues musician that died at 35 years old from a helicopter crash in 1990. Quite sad, but his music still survives him. While touring around, we love visiting presidential libraries when there is one close by. And on this occasion, we visited the Lyndon B Johnson Library. He became president after John F. Kennedy got shot. He was famous for expanding civil rights, but lost approval due to the unpopular Vietnam War. The outside of the library is a 10-story building that looks like a monument. Very minimalist looking, but the inside is majestic with its great hall showcasing a 4-story glass-covered archive, including pretty much everything that he wrote and said during his presidency. It was a fun visit, and we recommend. In the same vein, we visited the Texas State Capitol on 22 acres of land called the Capitol Grounds. The Capitol was completed in 1853, and from the rotunda, you can see the dome from inside. That was worth a visit, and on top of it, it was free. Alright, enough of being inside. We visited next the Zilker Botanical Garden, which was nice, but we may have been a bit too early to enjoy it while blooming. It was well laid out and must be beautiful once everything has sprung out. Being in a music city, we couldn't miss strolling on the famous Music 6th Street. We stopped for a couple of beers at the Friends Bar and had a good lunch at the Dead Rabbit Irish Pub. Unfortunately, we were there late afternoon, and it only started to bustle with activity, but I'm sure the evening and nighttime must be crazy. Well, maybe on another occasion. Wrapping up our visit, we stopped at the Austin Winery in the St Elmo Art District, which is called The Yard. The wines were a bit too sweet, but the location was very hipster. Nice spot. Our next stop on the road trip was the Hot Spring KOA in Arkansas for one night. We didn't have time to visit anything special at that location, but we'll be back in the future. Arriving at the Nashville KOA, you knew that the city was going to be a good place with all the good vibes going on. The KOA has a shuttle that brings you to the city and pick you up when you're done partying. At that particular KOA is also where they host the Airstream Camp Nashville, where they cater to people who owns an Airstream. It's not cheap, but they organize everything while you stay with them. Our first day, we hopped on the shuttle and visited the Country Hall of Fame. This place is huge and it's a must-do if you are a country music fan. Even though we're not crazy about country, we enjoyed ourselves and learned quite a bit about the various artists. On exit, we grabbed a bite at the Laine Wilson's Bell Bottoms Up restaurant and bar. A nice rooftop patio and the food was very good. While in the same area, we visited the Johnny Cash Museum. It's a nice museum with many artifacts, but compared to the Country Music Hall of Fame, for the same price, it was a bit overpriced. After those two museums, we needed a bit of fresh air and walked on the John Siegenthaler pedestrian bridge, which is one of the longest in the world, to get an overview of the city and the Cumberland River. It was a nice quiet spot. The bridge is right next to downtown and brings you to the home of the NFL Nashville Titans team stadium. It must be crazy busy on game days. Back to exploring, we heard about the famous Ryman Auditorium and booked a backstage tour of it. The Ryman Auditorium is about 130 years old and was initially a church. It had its popular early days in the 1920s with the likes of Houdini and Charlie Chaplin. Then later in the 40s, it hosted the Grand Ole Opry House until 1974 with big names like Elvis and Johnny Cash. Then for 20 years, it sat empty and fell in disrepair. But in 1989, they restored it and the modern era started with Ringo Starrs and the Foo Fighters, to name a few. As a small venue being close to the artists, it must be way cool and the sound must be amazing. One thing for sure, I'd like to attend a show in the future, and we'll tell you about it, that's for sure. To end the day, we spent a few hours in different bars on the Honky Tonk Highway, with its open bars and music blasting from everywhere. Getting out of the busy street, Brian brought us to a blues bar on Printer's Alley. That was very cool and the place was quite full by the time we left. On another day, we visited the Tennessee State Museum, which was really well done, and on top of it, it was free. We spent at least 3 hours in that museum discovering Tennessee from its origin to today. Nearby, we walked on the Capitol Mall with its World War II memorial, the 95 bell carillon, which are set up in a circular shape, and unfortunately, they were being worked on and didn't hear it play. The mall is pretty long, and in the background, you can see the state capitol, which we didn't visit. Finally, we did a quick stop and got some pictures of a full-size replica of the Greek Parthenon. Unfortunately, we ran out of time and didn't visit it. With the many American cities that we've visited, I'd say this is one of the best, and we'll be back for sure. The place is very much alive and a lot of fun. Getting out of Nashville, we were exhausted with all this touring, and our last stop was Jackson Center in Ohio. Not much around, but we wanted to tour the Airstream Factory, which is also called the Mothership. That place is huge, and the assembly is crazy busy with different models being assembled individually instead of being in a chain. We also toured the museum where they have a lot of vintage Airstreams and from where it all started. It was worth the visit and recommend doing so if you are in the area, even if you don't own an Airstream. But if you do, you may be tempted to buy one. Coming home through customs was as usual with the normal questions, and this concludes our 4-month stay in the US. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Next one will be on the starts of the Ontario camping season. See you soon, and thanks for watching.